Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Gatewood. I am the Communications and Marketing Director at CFRE International, and I am thrilled that you are along with us today for this very special presentation just for fundraising professionals in Australia and New Zealand about how to become a CFRE. We are going to start with some housekeeping really quickly. We are going to take your questions. There's a question pane. Feel free to pop your questions in. There are 2 question breaks today where I will stop and look at what's in the pane, and we will address those questions together. We have an application online that is free to start. If you haven't yet started your application, you can begin it at mycfre.cfre.org. If you would like to start filling that out while you listen along today, that can be a great thing to do because you might hit a question in the application and you can just get it answered by me as we go along today. We are recording today's webinar. I will send a link via email out in about 24 hours along with a link to the slides. So you don't have to furiously take notes. We will make sure that you have all of that good information. All right, so with that said, I am going to jump into the slides. We are very fortunate that we have Ryan Ginard with us today. We are going to hear from him in probably about 8 to 10 minutes, and then he'll also come back in at the end. He is a CFRE in Australia. I'll do a proper intro of him shortly, but just note that we have Ryan with us and he will be sharing some great information with you. So to get started about what the CFRE is, we are the only globally recognized accredited certification for fundraisers. This is our biggest point of differentiation. There are many wonderful certificate programs that are Australia specific, or there used to be a fundraising certificate for New Zealand, different country specific ones. But our certification is global. So once you earn it, it means the same thing in Japan, as Australia, as New Zealand, as the UK, as Canada, the US. Anywhere you go, the same 4 letters after your name mean that you have met the same requirements. We've been around for over 40 years. We've been in Australia and New Zealand since the early 90s. So we have a couple of people who actually have hit their 30-year milestone of being CFREs in Australia and New Zealand. Everything we do is grounded in ethical best practice fundraising. That's what we're here to promote. The certification is to ensure that your fundraising practice aligns with ethical best practices. All of us want to believe that people are ethical in nonprofits all the time, but we know that unfortunately that is not always the case. I worked for a nonprofit early in my career in Washington, D.C., where my coworker stole between 0.5 and $1 million. The true amount was never arrived at because it was a very convoluted kind of scheme. That put me personally and professionally on this path of caring a great deal about nonprofits and their ethical commitments and their ethical fundraising. I've been with CFRE for 6 years, and before this, I worked for the Fundraising Institute of New Zealand for 3 years. So it's very near and dear to my heart about ethical best practice fundraising. We have over 7,700 CFREs across more than 25 countries. Australia is our 3rd largest market for CFREs. So the largest market is in the US, followed by Canada, followed by Australia. This North American presence is heavily because we were founded in North America, but we have had a growing number of CFREs in Australia over the last 5-6 years that I've been at CFRE. We have 118 right now, and we have about a dozen CFREs in New Zealand. We had 20 at one time. A number of people retired, but we've had some new people becoming CFREs earlier in their careers there, which is great to see. So that number is good for you because when you have it, you will stand out as a professional in your country for going above and beyond. The great thing about the CFRE, with there being 7,700 certificates worldwide, is that it's not something everybody has. When you have it, you really stand head and shoulders above. You are showing your commitment to this profession and to the standards. I'll talk a little bit generally about the benefits of certification in just a broad viewpoint here. A certification, why is it important, right? You don't want to get your hair cut by a hairdresser that doesn't have their license. You don't want to take your taxes to an accountant who hasn't been certified. A certification is assurance for the public and employers that you know your stuff, that you've demonstrated your knowledge, it's been tested by an exam, you've met a certain set of requirements, people can put their faith in you. We are accredited by the ANSI National Accreditation Board, which is based in North America, but they have multilateral agreements around the world. So as a result of that, our accreditation is recognized worldwide. So our own program has been found to meet the rigors required of a solid certification program. So you can have faith in us, and we know what we're doing when we're certifying. A certification is great for you because a certification is created by making a set of standards for a profession, right? So in fundraising, CFRE, we have created a set of ethical best practice standards that have resulted in an outline of required knowledge. This is through our test content outline, which I'll talk about a little bit later today. But a good certification results in a designation that you can use after your name. Some people say, they became a CFRE in Australia or New Zealand, they put CFRE after their name. And people said, what does that mean? They might not necessarily know what a CFRE is, but they'll ask, what do these initials mean? Many CFREs in that part of the world have told me that it becomes a great entry point to tell high net worth individuals, donors, employers, what the CFRE certification stands for. And people go, well, that's exactly who we want to work with, right? That's exactly the kind of major gifts officer we want to work with. That's exactly the kind of person we want to hire, somebody who is so serious about best practice ethical fundraising. Certification requires maintenance. You don't just earn it once and sail off into the sunset and say, you know what, that was fun. A certification requires you to continue learning. That is what makes it so valuable. I told you the CFRE has been around for over 40 years. We actually have 2 current CFREs who earned the designation in 1981. If they never did another minute of professional development, all of us would be pretty terrified, right? But because they're CFREs, we know that they have recertified. We know that their body of knowledge is current. There are now nonprofit degrees out there, which are absolutely fabulous because they put a lot of people on the pathway to becoming a CFRE. There's a very easy leap to make from earning a degree in nonprofit management or something related to nonprofits and fundraising. I'll talk about that a little bit more in the application section, but credentials and certifications do have a leg up on degrees because they're evergreen, right? So a degree you do once and it's done. I have a master's from 2005. It's horrendously out of date, right? But your credential, because you're recertifying, it stays fresh. It shows that times change and you keep up with them. As a CFRE in the CFRE community, in order to become a CFRE, you have to agree to abide by the International Statement of Ethical Principles in Fundraising, the Donor Bill of Rights, and our accountability standards, in addition to your local laws. Why is this important? Well, what's great about this is because the CFRE process has a grievance committee, right? So the CFRE community has a grievance committee. If you ever are concerned about another CFRE's behavior, we have a way that you can report that. It can be looked into, right? Very fortunately, in my 6 years at CFRE, that's not really been an issue, but we have that mechanism to ensure that people are playing by the rules, right? Because it's very difficult sort of within our own countries and our own professions necessarily to always be able to flag that. The benefits of being a CFRE, there are many, many that people report. We do a survey every other year and we ask our CFREs, what do you like about having the credential? What is it helping you with? So people tell us it is great because it signifies their competence, right? Immediately you see these 4 letters after someone's name and you know, okay, this person is serious about fundraising. They've gone above and beyond. They've earned a voluntary credential. This person is exactly the kind of person that you want to work with, you want to hire, you want to be. It also can help you get basically a pathway into CFRE only events. If you go to the FIA conference every year, they have a Fellows in CFRE event, which is a wonderful networking opportunity. The Fundraising Institute of New Zealand conference, I know, has been on hiatus for a little bit, but historically they always had a Fellows and CFRE event there as well. Becoming a CFRE enhances your credibility because it shows that you have met standards and that you are committed to the profession, right? Just like when you see your accountant with their certification, your board certified doctor, right? You know, okay, I have an assurance in working with this person. Also, career advancement. I have been to the FIA conference for a few years. Unfortunately, I didn't make it this year, but the last 2. I had a great opportunity to speak with recruiters there, many of whom said, you know, we know what the CFRE is. When we see it on a candidate CV, we really light up. We love to interview CFREs. We love to put them forward because we know that they have a very, very solid foundation of fundraising behind them. If you have your sights set on working overseas, particularly the US and Canada, having your CFRE is a real foot in the door. Many job postings here say CFRE preferred in them, especially for director of development and higher levels. So I don't know what your career aspirations are, but if you are considering maybe coming over to the States or Canada, just know that your CFRE carries a lot of weight in these communities. All right, so with that, you've heard enough from me for a little bit. We are now going to hear from Ryan, who I'm super excited to bring on to talk about the career benefits as he has experienced them. Ryan became a CFRE in March of 2021, so he's got 3 years under his belt, so he's got some good experience that he can share with you. He is also the author of Future Philanthropy and Nonprofit Moneyball. He is currently the head of advocacy for effective philanthropy, and the founder, or sorry, that is at Mindaroo Foundation, and he is the founder and director of Fundraise for Australia. He, not only that, but he is our official CFRE ambassador for Australia. So what that means is Ryan is your person on the ground that can help guide you through the CFRE process if you have questions. So I am going to go ahead and bring up Ryan's slide, and he is going to take it away and talk to you a little bit about the career benefits.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. Yeah, I also got recertified this year, so obviously a re-up, as it were, and to move to Mindaroo and be like on the funders side. A lot of people asked, why do you want to continue this accreditation? I said it was important for a number of reasons. Being an effective philanthropy, understanding how we give our money, and the issues around pay what it takes, and a number of the other issues that we have seen kind of entrenched into our social sector, even fundraisers being seen, and how we kind of carve out space for them. I think it's an important designation to have, and sends a message to the field that Mindaroo is definitely looking at how our fundraisers operate as we look to double giving by 2030, as the government said. But I digress. In terms of CFRE, look, this has been a game changer for my whole career. I mean, we'll just get cut to the chase. I wouldn't have been able to come back to Australia from the US. I wouldn't have been able to get the jobs I was privileged to work in the US if I didn't have my CFRE. It really opened the door to have those interviews and discussions about how I could make an impact. It definitely showcases best practice and professionalism. Again, in a largely self-regulated industry, this commitment is extremely important. When we struggle each day to really convey what we do internally to our leadership and board and externally to the organizations that we're seeking funding from, even the donors that we, again, go out and discuss what their giving might look like, their legacy, etc. Again, it just shows a commitment to best practice, and I think I should have underlined that slide there because I think that's goes largely to what Ashley's conveyed as well. It's accountability as well. So globally accepted standards helps lift up our field here. And as a lot of you would know, we've got the Productivity Commission doing a national inquiry into our field. The Department of Social Services creating a new not-for-profit blueprint. So again, we are in a spot where we're not seen in the space. There is no data around fundraising in Australia except for what we have with the CFRE. When you give your tax return, there's no way to put in that you're a fundraiser. In fact, there's no way to share that your position works in a not-for-profit anyway. So working on that. So being a CFRE is really leading the charge there. And again, just the commitment to excellence, ethics and shared values. I did the CFRE because it espouses how I want to approach the work. I want to build resources in a way that does stand up to I guess, that torch of a lot of your gift processing, gift agreement folks do when you're trying to make sure the money is given out in the way that the donor expects. So all these things give you the skills, the background, the knowledge to move forward effectively. So yeah, in terms of career benefits, this is the thing. This is what you want to do. And the 118 folks in the field, you know that is a really small number, and we can do more and be more, and that there is a lot of jobs going around. So that's a simple equation there. So hopefully that helps on, again, the career benefits there. Ashley?
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Ryan. I am also going to just put through the chat there the link if you do want to start your application. Follow along with me. If you have any questions for Ryan, you can also put them in the question pane, and when we have our question breaks, we can Ryan's mind as a person who has had the CFRE for 3 years. So thank you so much, Ryan, and we will hear from you a little bit later. All right, so speaking with your employer, over 50% of CFREs tell us in our survey, so we do a survey every other year to our entire certificate body, that so over 50% report that their employer has contributed to part or all of their initial certification fee. Making a case to your employer may or may not be easy depending on what their professional development budget is, their culture of continuous learning, but I always say it's worth having the conversation. You know how to time conversations, you're an expert at asking for support. This can be a great way that your employer can invest in your knowledge. It's third-party validation, right? It's not just you saying, I know this, it's a globally recognized body that is attesting, yes, you are an expert in this. You can add it to grant applications and donor conversations. You know, what a great steward of funds, what a great steward of relationships. Ethics and accountability are never going to go out of style, right? At least in good organizations. So that's a great case that you can make to your employer, because if you haven't measured your knowledge against globally accepted ethical best practices, you may be doing something that's not totally by the book, but not out of any bad motivation. It's just you haven't assessed your knowledge at that point, right? So A lot of people say that the CFRE process, even preparing for the exam, doing the education for the requirements, bolstered their confidence, and they were learning a lot along the way that they got to put into practice even before they became a CFRE. So there are a lot of benefits to this process. To become a CFRE, first you complete and submit your application, and I'm going to talk to you about the three main application segments in a few minutes here. We then review your application. Then once it's approved, you are sent an email with instructions on how to book your exam. You will make your exam appointment. Once you pass the exam, you are a CFRE. That's all there is to it. So an application and an exam. I'm a little broken record here, but start your application for free. There is no downside to it. The application is looking at your accomplishments in the last 5 years. So we're going back to January 1, 2019. The application itself will not expire. So if you created an application a year or two ago, you haven't gone into it, we still have it. You can just log in. You don't need to start from scratch. You can fill it out over however long it takes you to fill it out, essentially. You don't have to fill it out in one sitting by any means. The first segment of the application is education. This is where you are going to enter in education that you've participated in. This application works on a point system, and I'm not going to go down a whole rabbit hole of points. We'll just kind of look at it at a easy to understand top level, because inside the application it spells out all of the point values right there. So I won't rehash that here. But what's great about this application is that you will put in the education that you have attended that's fundraising related. If you present, you can also enter that. If you say, Ashley, I hate talking in front of people, there's no way I'm going to present, that's 100% fine. It's not required. It's just if you do, you get points. One thing people love about this application is they attend fundraising education and they put it in their application right straight away. They log it so they don't forget it. When it comes time for your annual review, you can go into your CFRE application and you've kept track of all the education you've gone on. So you can say to your boss during your annual review, well, you know, I went to 2 conferences and I did 16 hours of webinars, right? So you can make a case for, you know, more professional development funds while you're poised and ready for a promotion, that kind of thing. But people love this application because it's a natural repository of where you can store all of your great education accomplishments, which you can use and leverage for yourself, even outside of the CFRE process. So fundraising education, we accept pretty much most varieties of it. The big ones are conferences, webinars, workshops, master classes, panel discussions, roundtables, all of those good things are going to count. We can also take up to 10 points of non-fundraising education. So this has to be something relevant to your job. You know, people love to submit stuff like yoga for fundraisers, which sounds really nice, but it's not going to qualify because we need to see that it actually is going to contribute to your fundraising success. So things like finance classes, maybe a webinar on leadership. If you ever do a public speaking course, these are the kinds of things that we're looking at. Like I said, we are going back to January 1, 2019. If you did education before today, which I'm sure a lot of you have done, you want to jog your memory about what you attended, a great way to do that is to go through your calendar. People run searches on their email inbox. They get their receipts from conference registrations, credit card statements, you know, whatever might help you jog your memory, because you're probably sitting on a lot of points. You don't have to start this from square one because we're looking at what you've done from January 1, 2019 forward. If you have an academic degree, this is the one thing that can be outside that 5-year timeline. Any year, any major. If you have a bachelor's of French literature from 2012, It will count any year, any major. If you don't have an academic degree, that's completely fine. It's not required, but just know that if you have one, we can award points for it. You can also earn points through service learning. This is our term for volunteering. If you volunteer in a general role or if you volunteer on a committee or board, that's all going to count. This also includes volunteering at your children's school, at your place of worship. The volunteer commitment does not have to run 12 months of the year. Many volunteer commitments are short-term. We understand that. If you do a beach cleanup in the summer for 2 months, that's fine, right? That it doesn't have to run all year long. If you're like Ryan and you're a prolific author, or maybe you're just dipping your toe into authoring on fundraising topics, we can also award you points for that. Cannot be self-published, and it must be a 500-word minimum. There are all kinds of qualifying education types. I'm sure you are a person with a lot of points right now. A lot of people say to me, I started filling out the application and then I realized how many points in education I had, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm almost at the threshold. I may as well submit it and get the show on the road and take my next professional step. So just know there are all kinds of ways that you can earn those points. Now, one of the things that's really great about our application is that we have a lot of information right at your fingertips. FIA are amazing. They submit a lot of their conferences, their different education ventures, their certificate to us so that it is pre-populated in the application. What this means is if you attended these, you were participating, you just go into the application and you see on the left side those red letters that say education from approved providers. You simply type FIA or Fundraising Institute Australia in that box, it'll populate up. And then a drop-down menu will show for what FIA has run and had pre-approved for CFRE education. If you've been on their conferences going back 2019 forward, right? These points are right there for you. So you just select them, you'll be good to go. You don't have to go back through your calendar and reconstruct everything. All right, and good news, if you are a member of Fundraising Institute New Zealand, they also have a number of their trainings and offerings also pre-populated in here. So if you attended any of those, you can just locate them and it is a breeze to get them added to your application. If you're looking for fundraising education, you can check out My Education Finder. We have this available on our website. If you go to cfre.org, at the top, there's a little menu. It says My Education Finder in there. We have offerings from Australian providers. I know Changing Company has a number of offerings that you can learn about through there. If you do Blackbaud Razor's Edge training, that qualifies. So there are a number of opportunities at your fingertips if you are looking for education. Some of it in My Education Finder is paid, some of it is low cost, and some of it is free. Have a look there. The second piece of the application is professional practice, which means you working in a paid professional fundraising role. The requirement is that you need to have worked 36 months in the last 5 years in a paid professional fundraising role. We're going back again, January 1, 2019. If you have worked for 3 years since that time, pat yourself on the back. You have met this requirement. If you work 40 hours a week, at least 50% of your duties and responsibilities need to be fundraising related. If you do marketing half the time and fundraising half the time, that's all good, but we do need to have at least 50% fundraising related. If you work 20 hours a week, 100% of that must be fundraising related. Easy breezy. Our third requirement here is professional performance. This is you raising funds or showing your impact. I'm going to explain the 2 ways that we have that you can meet the requirements in this section. So firstly, because we're accredited, our accrediting body has a requirement, right, that we need to show that people are able to fundraise. So the requirement is to have raised the equivalent of 1.375 million US dollars in the last 5 years. That number might sound high depending on where you are, but I will break it down for you. The application has a currency converter in it. And the reason why this is in US dollars is because we're accredited. The accrediting body does not allow us to have one amount for New Zealand dollars, one amount for Australian dollars, one amount for Thai baht, one amount for euro, and so on. We're only allowed to have one, and that's to show that everybody has met that standard, right? So we're going back again, January 1, 2019. But the really good news is that we recognize fundraising as a team sport. It can be really difficult when you're on a team project that's brought in funds to, people get all in their head about parsing that out. So let's say you are a bequest fundraiser, you close a $3 million gift. That gift comes in, right? That's you, that's all you, that's perfect. You put that in your CFRE application. But there are a number of things, direct mail pieces, digital fundraising campaigns, galas, things like that, where you are more than likely working with other people in your team, right? So let's take this example of a gala. If you were one of the team members, one of the 3 people on that team, and that gala brought in $250,000, you would claim that for yourself. Each person on that team would be able to claim that $250,000 if they worked on it, because things like galas can be very difficult, right? Because there could be quite a mix of how that money is coming in. You might have 2 people working together on an ask, stuff along those lines. So know that if it's something like a DM piece, like I said, a digital fundraising campaign, an event, a run walk, all of that, where there's like a real team effort from your organization, we recognize that, and that is how you will count the funds. If you're in a smaller organization or you want to just use this alternative avenue to meet this requirement, it is open to you. This is communications and management projects. So this will satisfy the professional performance requirement as well. A project, just, it sounds obvious, but I'll go over it. It just has to have a start and an end date and a stated purpose or goal. Hitting send on your weekly e-newsletter every Friday, that's not a project, right? That's your job, that's what you do. But a project would be if you overhauled your newsletter end to end, you redesigned it, you changed your calls to action, you changed the day you send it on, and now it's bringing in 12% more donations year over year. That's a project. So that's a good way to think about it. We have a lot of examples on our website. There's a very good chance that you have completed some of these in the last 5 years, and you've got some points just sitting there waiting. All right, so the initial certification cost is $700 US if you are an FIA, FINS, or Educate Plus member. One of the benefits of being a member of these organizations is that they give you this 20% discount. Like I said, 50% of CFREs, over 50%, have said that their employer contributed a part or all of the cost. Some people cost share, they do 50-50. Some people say to their employer they cut a deal. They say, I will pay this up front. When I pass the exam, I want to be reimbursed. We've had a number of people use that avenue. It's a great motivator to study even more thoroughly, but it also can help your employer feel a little bit more at ease. If you are not a member of those 3 organizations, one of those 3 organizations, the rate is $875 US. It's an all-inclusive fee, which means that includes us reviewing your application, all the testing fees. So when it comes time to take the exam, you're not going to pay to book at the exam site. It's us sending you a digital badge when you become a CFRE, so you can announce to your network on LinkedIn and Twitter that you're a fresh CFRE. Plus, it includes us mailing the hard copy certificate to you anywhere in the world. So there's no additional fee if you're in Australia or New Zealand. Your fee that you've paid for the initial certification covers us sending that certificate to you wherever you are. All right, so we are now going to look at how the exam is created. I know a lot of people have trepidation about the exam. I want to be your sensei so that you feel comfortable and confident. The number one thing I can tell you is that this exam is on your chosen profession, right? This is what you do multiple days a week. You have at least 3 years experience behind you before you take the exam. You are smart, you are savvy, you are committed, you are a person that goes the extra mile. You are a lifelong learner, right? So you are going to think about this exam, hopefully in a way that doesn't feel scary, but it's a great way for you to fortify your fundraising knowledge and make sure that you don't have any gaps. So the exam questions apply no matter where you are. So if you're in Rotorua, if you're in Randwick, if you're in Rio, anywhere in the world, the questions are going to apply to you. It's not an American exam. It's not a North American exam. It is a truly global exam. We refresh some of the questions every year. That's to keep it current with fundraising best practices, but also for exam security. The language of the exam, it's universal terms. We don't make up our own nomenclature. We don't pick terms out of the air. We are using terms that are globally recognized. The way the exam is created is designed so that when you study for it, it's going to lift your fundraising knowledge. And this is why a lot of people say, okay, when I was studying for the exam, I learned things that I could turn around and put into practice in my department before I even took the exam, right? I'm learning as I'm going. It's been a great motivator. It's keeping me on track for that. The way the exam is created is every 5 to 7 years, we run a global job task analysis where we ask fundraising professionals which fundraising tasks they perform, how often they perform them, and how critical they are to their fundraising success. This was last run in 2022. We had respondents from 21 countries, including Australia and New Zealand. And we had thousands and thousands and thousands of people respond to this. This is important because this ensures the exam is relevant. We are asking you things that you need to know. We're not an exam that was created in 1999 and it never gets refreshed and you're going, oh, geez, like this is all old hat, right? Your prep for this exam is to help you be a better fundraiser today, knowing what fundraisers need to know right now in this moment to be successful in the role. The exam is divided into 6 knowledge domains that you see here on your screen. We are very, very transparent about what the exam covers. This job task analysis has found for many years that these knowledge domains are key to a fundraiser's success. You'll see that securing the gift and relationship building, so we have the number of questions in the one column, the percentage of the exam in the other. Securing the gift and relationship building make up over half the exam. These are critical to your success as a fundraising professional, right? Because if you can't secure gifts and if you can't relationship build, you're going to have very limited success. So the preparation for this exam is designed heavily to help you fortify and strengthen your knowledge across these 6 domains, but especially in these 2 critical spaces. We have a test content outline on our website. This is the roadmap of the exam for you. It's a PDF. I always say print it off, highlight everything you don't feel confident you could answer an exam question in or that you haven't directly worked in yourself. That will be your personal study plan roadmap. That's going to be where you need to focus your time. If you're an expert in volunteer management, you're probably not going to spend much time there, right? If you've been doing that for 20 years. You want to use this time to study to address any gaps in your fundraising knowledge. We have a resource reading list. We don't have one book that we say you have to read. We know people like to pick their own books. These are 4 comprehensive books that you see here on your screen that are from the resource reading list. You may have one of these, maybe your coworker has one of these, your library has one of these. I'm all about doing everything as cheaply as possible, so you've got 4 fabulous options here if you want to just buy one book and consider that done. When you read whichever book you've selected, you're going to think about what you highlighted on that test content outline. That's going to be where your major areas of focus are going to be. That's where you're going to spend extra time. You're going to take handwritten notes because they mentally stick better than highlighting passages. And this is going to be how you will confidently prepare for the exam. We have other resources available to you to help you. The third one here is the glossary. This is on our website as a PDF. It's free. This is the language of the exam. I told you it's in universally understood terms. This glossary is what you want to familiarize yourself with. You do not have to memorize any of the definitions on it. Not at all. We don't expect you to memorize definitions, but get familiar and you'll look at it and you'll be, okay, I understand these terms, and that will help you feel more confident and ready when you come to the exam. We do offer a practice exam. It is a paid product. You don't have to buy it if you don't want to spend the money. I totally get it. I just want you to know that it's available to you. This has a bank of 320 questions. Some of them are retired off old CFRE exams. It is a subscription, which means that you can take it as much as you want within 30 days. It's $59.95. People like this one if it's been a while since they took a test, so that they can kind of just get back into like, okay, how do I get into this state of thinking? But it's also very useful if the highlighting on the test content outline is not feeling good for you. If you doubting yourself, well, I don't know, I think I know this, but I mean, do I know this? It's been a couple years since I worked in this. Do I think I know what I think I know? The practice exam will help you determine that definitively. We also have a study guide. Again, it's another paid item you don't have to use if you don't want to. It's $49.99 US. It's available on Amazon. It is a good resource if you like an old school workbook style, right? So it's got practice questions, space to inventory your knowledge, a lot of good info if you just like to have everything in one hard copy book form. If you're an FIA member, good news, there is a free FIA study group for people pursuing their CFRE. It started on February 26th, but you can jump in now. There's a couple sessions left. They, I believe, are running it again later this year. If you want to be kept in the loop on that, email training@fia.org.au. Like I said, it's free. It is virtual. So there's no reason not to do it, even if you're maybe just contemplating the CFRE, if you want to jump into it, because it's going to just help you feel prepared. Plus, people love this study group because they get to meet other people and grow their network. It's awesome for that. When you take the exam, I'm going to show you in Australia, New Zealand, the testing center information. So Pearson VUE is our partner in Australia and New Zealand, and globally, they administer the exam. Pop over to pearsonvue.com/CFRE. Type in your postal code. It will populate a map. I've done this one for Sydney. You'll see that there is a map with the little flags of where their test centers are. There's also a list of all the locations, so you will know exactly where you can take the exam. If you're in New Zealand, what I love about Pearson VUE is they're everywhere. They're even in Invercargill, right? They're everywhere. So if you're in New Zealand, there are a number of test centers available to you. Again, you can see the map on the right and the list on the left. The structure of the exam is that it's multiple choice. Great news for you, because the correct answer is staring back at you. There are no open-ended questions. There are no essay questions. There are 4 answer options per question, and you are selecting the best practice. The best advice I can give you on the exam is to remember that this exam is not asking you how you fundraise at your organization, right? Sometimes people go, I need to answer these questions for how my department fundraises. This is about the best practice, globally accepted best practice. And it may not necessarily be what your department does. And that's not to say that you don't want to follow best practices, right? It could be because you have an executive director who insists that you do something a certain way. It could be because right now you're revamping your fundraising and you're going to tighten it up and make it more efficient and ensure that it follows these best practices, but that's still in process. When you look at these questions, you are looking for the best answer of the best practice. You have 4 hours to take the exam. And one of my favorite facts in this whole webinar is that this is not a 4-hour exam. Most people finish in 2 hours and 45 minutes. We give you ample time. We want to set you up for a very good test taking experience. You can move backwards and forwards in the exam. You can flag questions to come back to later. You are able to take a 10-minute break so that you can use the restroom, take medication, have a snack. We want you to be comfortable, refreshed, and to come to this with a clear mind. We want to set you up for passing, right? So we give you plenty of time on the exam. The exam score range is 200 to 800 with 500 as the pass mark. What's great about this, you don't have to have a perfect score, right? Even your doctor, when they took their medical board licensure exam, right? They didn't have to have a perfect score. You don't have to have a perfect score. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes people get really freaked out and they think, oh my gosh, when I take the exam and there's 2 questions I'm sure I don't know, I'm going to just be really in a bad situation. There is not a need for you to be perfect on this. All right, we're going to look at a practice question together. This question does not appear on the live exam. The question will give you an understanding of what I mean when I say it's a globally applicable question. So you'll see that if you were in Singapore or you were in Tasmania or you were in the Chatham Islands, no matter where you are, this is going to apply. When a donor wishes to make a planned gift / bequest to the endowment fund, the fundraising officer should first, 1, offer to contact the donor's financial organization and advisor. 2, explore what the donor wishes to accomplish with the gift. 3, identify and share with the donor the organization's future needs. Or 4, introduce the donor to various planned giving options. You don't have to tell me your answer, but I'll give you a few seconds to get it in mind. All right, and the correct answer is number 2. This is the ethical best practice. You allow the donor to lead with their philanthropic intent, right? You don't steer them towards a fund, you don't put them in a direction of the new thing. You are letting them guide where they want their philanthropy to have an impact. To become a CFRE, you recertify every 3 years. There is no exam. Once you pass the exam, you're done with it. The cost is $408 US for FIA, FINS, and Educate Plus members. A number of people who become a CFRE will actually build this into their next employment agreement. Let's say you become a CFRE. You get a fabulous job offer. You know that in 3 years, you will need to recertify. You could ask, will you pay for this? It is a great litmus test of your potential future employer's interest in professional development, but it is something very worthwhile asking for, and a number of people do this. It's all done by an online application, and it's $510 US at the full rate. All right, so with that, we are going to bring back Ryan, and he is going to give you his CFRE advice. Don't forget, if you have any questions for me or for Ryan, put them through the Q&A. We will look at them with the last few minutes of the webinar. So Ryan, welcome back, and take.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, some great advice there, Ashley, which I'm totally going to riff on. So, as you mentioned, starting your application is probably number one. if you kind of wait to get all your ducks in a row, you're going to run out of time. The best thing to do is open up a application now and start adding all the great things that you're doing in there. As Ashley said, at the end of the year, you can actually show it for all the work you've been doing, your commitment to continued learning, and really just being the best fundraiser you can be. So again, it ends up being like your own like pep talk at the end of the year, especially when you're looking at new jobs, etc. So start the application. You'll be surprised at how great a fundraiser you are. We're in a very lonely profession, so having those reaffirmations coming from ourselves are pretty important. Join a study group. This I took my exam in 2015, the first one. I'd just been in the space for 3 years, and that's when they changed it to that's when you could kick it off. And hang on 2 seconds, I'm getting accosted by a ton of birds, so let me just shoo them off.
No
Hang
problem.
on 2 seconds.
All right. Well, while Ryan is doing that. Oh,
I'm
okay,
back.
great. Ryan's back.
Sorry.
Perfect. All right.
This is the strangest presentation I've been a part of, solely because I'm in Canberra at the foot of Mount Ainslie, so it's either cockatoos or other things. But that's, I guess, always keeping me on my toes. But yes, please join a study group. Very important. As I said, I did my exam in the first instance and took it all wrong. I looked at a different textbook. I thought I knew it all. I was very young and brash, and did the CFRM at the Lilly School of Philanthropy, and thought that would carry through. So definitely make a plan. Every fundraiser is different. Every person is different. Your approach is, I'm dyslexic, so I found out pretty late in my career. So I decided during COVID that I really wanted to take my CFRE again. I thought I was ready, I was prepared. And the first, I did the study group, a great one with Jack Alotto. Again, the virtual components are really helpful. A lot of these study groups actually just curate this amazing peer learning experience, and people take their exams at different times. So knowing that someone's achieved it and become a CFRE really injects some enthusiasm into the room, and know that you're kind of in the right place at the right time. So the study group also sends kind of sample questions, little snapshots in between the sessions during the week. So they're great, and I can't speak highly enough of them. And learn the exam, as she said, it's a multiple choice. The answer is there staring you in the face. And if you read the question, it will help you answer. And it sounds ironic, right? But there is nuance in those questions. So don't look at it through your experiences. Look at it through the experience and learnings from the text. And one thing I did when I walked into the exam is I wrote at the top of the page, donor centric. That's really the hook there. And you would have seen from the sample question as well. While there's two that will kind of scream out to you that these could be the right answers, always go to the donor centric one there. And the only time I've seen people fail in the exams is on exam day. They haven't fully committed to the day, because it can be quite exhausting, a 4-hour exam. So going in there with plenty of time to go in, get comfortable, and take it head on. You know all the answers. You're doing great work. Nothing changes this exam. You are a great fundraiser. And I failed my first time by one question. Then had 10 years more experience, took it again, and I only passed by one question. And some person that was mentoring me at the time said, look, all you have to do is get 50 plus one. Anything more is showing off. So again, just know the work, and know once you pass the exam, you can go on and really do great things with that credential. So yeah, I'd say that's the advice. Just get stuck in there. It's an important piece of work, but a very rewarding piece of work too.
Thank you so much, Ryan. That's great advice. Good motivation to get going. All right, so we've got one more slide, and then we'll go to the Q&A. As I said before, we have a CFRE ambassador program. Ryan is a CFRE ambassador in Australia. If you want to get connected to him formally through the program, you can email me at share@cfre.org. I'll connect you, and he will be glad to guide you through that process. All right, so now we are going to go to the Q&A. Feel free to drop whatever you want into there. This is your chance to get a live answer. We have had one question come in about if you fail your exam, what does it cost to redo it, and how long of a period do you have to do? Okay, great question. I do want to just start off and say, I know a lot of people before they begin their application or submit it get very nervous about the exam. If you study 40 to 80 hours, that's what we've found recently in recent years is the real sweet spot for people passing. Really commit to it. Don't cut corners. I've seen people say, I didn't pass the exam. I mean, people have come up to me at conferences and said, I didn't pass the exam. And I've said, how have you studied? And I've had more than one person say, I don't have time to study. I didn't study. It will require studying. If you are unsuccessful on the exam, there is a 30-day wait period before you can take it again. And that is so you can have time to prepare, right? We don't want people to just like turn around the next day and do it. There is a 375 US dollar retake fee, and nobody wants to pay that, right? We want you to be successful and take the studying seriously the first time. Every year, some people, there are people who prepare and they don't pass, but we also have people who just rock up to the test center and think I'm a genius, and it doesn't necessarily work out for them. So take Ryan's great advice about join a study group. That keeps you on track, it keeps you accountable. I put Jack Olato's email address through the chat. So he is based in California, but he's incredibly responsive. He will be more than happy to connect with you and give you some great tips and advice there. There is a question about attending different webinars where you can get your CFRE points. And I'm going to put a link through the chat for you. But basically, if you go to FIA webinars, FINS webinars, Blackbaud webinars, Changing Company webinars, that are on fundraising topics, you're going to be earning those points super quick. That is the online learning has just been such a game changer for people to get those points. So you can do that if you go to the FIA conferences, all of those good things. I just put the My Education Finder URL through there. Bookmark that link. One thing I love about it too is if you look at that test content outline and you're like, oh geez, you know what? I am like way out of shape on bequests. You can just go in My Education Finder, look for bequests webinars or in-person trainings and take those towards your points while building your knowledge towards an area that you need to study up on anyway. So, I mean, it's a great resource. The another question's come in. I love this question. You mentioned published works of at least 500 words as the minimum for authoring. Does this include blogs, white papers, or just books? It unfortunately does not include blogs, and it does not include self-published material. But let's say you have an article that runs in the FIA newsletter, Pro Bono Australia, something there that is going to count. So those are great ways to earn those points through authoring while also zhuzhing up your CV, right? Because everyone loves to have that little publication line on their CV. All right, well, it looks like we've answered the questions. I just want to thank you all so much for being with us today. I love Australia and New Zealand fundraisers. This is one of my favorite webinars of the year to do. So it's just been a real privilege and an honor to have you with us. I want to thank Ryan for all of his fabulous information. In about 24 hours, you will receive an email from share@cfre.org, aka me. You will have a link to the recording and to the slides. So I wish you all big gifts and a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.